Hey everybody, tonight we watched The Suicide Squad, not to be confused with Suicide Squad, the movie from 2016 by David Ayer. This is 2021's The Suicide Squad. So Aiden, what's the plot of The Suicide Squad?
Well, the setup of the Suicide Squad is the same as Suicide Squad. Amanda Waller has assembled a team of disposable criminals who she sends to do some heroic stuff under threat of death. In this case, there is a Spanish, Dominican kind of island government that has had a coup recently, and they have something in their research lab that needs to be destroyed, and so the Suicide Squad is sent there to destroy it, and the true Suicide Squad was the friends they made along the way. Connor, what'd you think of the Suicide Squad?
I liked it quite a bit. It was pretty good. DCEU isn't really known for good films, so it was a delightful surprise to have a film that had good, well fleshed out characters, nice dynamics. It was funny, it had good action, and it actually looked good.
Yeah, it's crazy what you can do when you have a filmmaker who has a vision and talent.
Yeah, I mean, well, what you have is there's two auteurs who work in superhero cinema. Maybe three, but the verdict's still out on Taika Waititi. He seems like he'll just follow studio instructions and do it kind of flashy. You got Zack Snyder and you got James Gunn.
Yep.
James Gunn. So the nice thing is when you have a studio like Warner Brothers that lets you do whatever. I mean, traditionally it's had bad results, but occasionally you're gonna get kind of a gem in there. And I think kind of letting James Gunn do what he wants allowed him to channel some of his kind of trauma, rebellious, random energy. It very much felt like a B movie. Not B movie, but a B movie. You know, like a Roger Corman or a Lloyd Kaufman flick, to be more...
Very Lloyd Kaufman,
To be more in vein of something along the lines of trauma. And you really have this signature style. You have a whole new Suicide Squad comprising of mostly laughing stock heroes that James Gunn did a pretty good job of making feel realistic. They didn't lean into Harley Quinn as much as the movie
so glad this wasn't another fucking Harley Quinn movie.
See, I don't really mind Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. The biggest problem is we had the shitty Suicide Squad movie and the even shittier Birds of Prey movie. She embodies the character well. She just hasn't had a good script or a good movie to be in as the character. And I also like that they didn't lean on her too much, because if you lean on Harley Quinn too much, your movie will face some challenges. The movie wasn't afraid to kill off characters. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it was nice because all the characters were pretty well fleshed out, so you felt for all the characters a lot. Each character had their own dynamic and were distinct. You look at something like Justice League, and the character traits for each hero are heroic person, and even Marvel falls into that trap quite a bit, where each of these characters kind of had their own motives. The only one that kind of didn't... I mean, I liked all the characters, but Bloodsport? I don't know if that's the character.
I believe so.
I can't remember. I can't remember if Bloodsport was like the Valiant version of the similar character. He was some like 90s superhero or supervillain type of fucking wears the big straps and has a bunch of big guns.
It's Idris Elba.
Anyways, Idris Elba's character, he very much has a similar role to like Will Smith in the first movie. So his was probably the least creative character trait, and his is like, I need to do this for my daughter. Like it's literally like one for one the same setup as Will Smith. Obviously,
played better.
obviously done better in many ways. First off, they actually established the daughter slightly more instead of just like one flashback where the daughter's there. Will Smith's character was kind of flat, and I don't think Will Smith's a good actor in most roles. So any role, basically, Will Smith's played other than himself in the 90s sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So I thought it was really well done. There was a lot of good dynamics. I don't want to spoil what like the whole main plot is, because I think it is kind of nice to go in more blind. I don't think the trailers really give too much away because it was still different than I expected. But essentially, it kind of avoided a lot of the pitfalls the original Suicide Squad had. And I think in part the biggest problem with that first Suicide Squad is that it's very generic. I'm not going to claim to be like, I'm not going to claim it's the worst superhero movie of all time like people were in 2016 and now people are doing again because this movie's coming out, so it's an easy target to pick on the 2016 version. Suicide Squad, the original, has the pitfall. You know, it's not the worst superhero movie ever. I'm not going to claim to be Cosmonaut Marcus and just have the worst takes in the history of film discussion. It's a bad movie, but that mostly comes down to the generic characters and shit. But this movie does a much better job of creating likable characters. It actually looks good and unique, and I think. Oh, and it's actually pretty funny. But other than that, Aiden, what is your thoughts on The Suicide Squad?
Suicide Squad is a DC movie that's actually fun. It's not miserable or boring. Doesn't hurt my head like Aquaman. It's not fucking horrendously shot, washed out with ugly filters, or filled with horrible CGI. The CGI in it isn't very good, but this movie's just a cartoon anyway, so who gives a fuck? Looks like a cartoon, which is perfectly fitting for what it is. It's funny, which is something you could not say about any of the other DC movies at all.
Right.
They're all the opposite of funny. I found all of the characters enjoyable. The characters actually had character, which was a first for the DC movies that are in the DC EU, whatever the fuck. Even though this one just ignores everything else.
Yeah. I mean,
basically, and restarts the Suicide Squad except for 3 characters who are completely different from how they were in Suicide Squad. Movie actually has characters. It's a fucking first. I appreciate the fact that this is actually an R-rated superhero movie instead of the fake dumb shit that fucking Deadpool is, where Deadpool's just a generic superhero movie where they say fucking penis a couple times and have like 12 seconds of gore. This movie's incredibly gory, very trauma. There's people getting ripped in half, decapitations, faces exploding, heads exploding, people getting crushed. There's a lot of fucking gore all over the place. A lot of fucking gore.
I actually like the character elevation with Peacemaker quite a bit because you can see how his character would get to that point. Like, I think all the characters actually have like characterization and natural conclusions to each of their story arcs, which is surprising. Not just from a DC movie, but from these superhero movies in general, which have like predictable story arcs. Like, if you look at like a couple weeks ago, Black Widow, it's like she's not gonna believe in the family, but then she believes in the family after all, and she fights a guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in the movie that are just genuinely fun, which is a shocker for DCU. Lots of parts when they go to save Rick Flag is very funny. There's lots of humor, good humor. I like the gigantic Weasel Man. It's well shot. I think the villain is cool. I assume that's some shit from the comics. I don't know. I liked Polka Dot Man. His character gimmick is funny. Yeah, I mean, in the end, it still kind of has to turn around and become a superhero, but it's not as jarring as it was in Suicide Squad 1.
I still thought the climax was a pretty unique climax, all things considered. I mean, it does have
all
a bit
things
of
considered.
it does have yeah.
Characters are much better. The character relationships were much better and made sense. They weren't just fucking a bunch of weird, dreary people being dreary together like the first movie. I appreciate that characters actually died. In the first movie, the only Suicide Squad guy who dies is the guy who dies, the only one who doesn't get an introduction.
I thought Slipknot did get an introduction.
He does not.
Just to waste your time. No.
He does not. That's how you know he's gonna die. You might have forgotten he didn't get an introduction because he looks the same as the other 10 characters in that movie, though.
Guy in generic superhero outfit.
Guy in
has no
military
character.
Suit. Yeah.
I was kind of sad Psoriasis Man didn't show back up, though.
I was very glad that character was not in. I was very glad they replaced him with the Shark. Yeah. I liked the Shark. Voiced by Sylvester Stallone, apparently. Didn't sound like him, but
choice. Pitch shifted a billion times.
Yep, it's good. It's finally a DCEU movie that's not fucking boring.
Hey,
and
Shazam
awful.
was okay.
Shazam was okay.
Wait,
this is a lot better.
There's something else I had to add, but I can't remember right now.
Yeah. Connor, would you recommend The Suicide Squad?
Yes, I would. It's a good movie. So, Aiden, would you recommend The Suicide Squad?
Yeah. It's the only movie in the DCEU canon that's good.
Kind of makes me sad that James Gunn's going back to finish the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy because...
Isn't he making the second 2 fucking Suicide Squad movies that they announced?
They announced 2 more?
Yeah, and there's an HBO Max TV show about Peacemaker.
I guess he must be finishing Guardians of the Galaxy first, because Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and the holiday 30-minute special they're doing next Christmas is both directed by James Gunn. Which I guess cool, but at the same time, like, that second movie, I just fucking did not like the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie either times I watched it. Just thought it was super fucking boring.
Regardless. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. I think more directors should jump ship to DC that don't suck so that they can do whatever the fuck they want. And hopefully they're not shitty ass directors like Zack Snyder or David Ayer or whoever directed Birds of Prey. You know who they should get to direct a DC movie and what character?
Tom Green.
That's actually exactly who I was gonna say. Who would Tom Green play?
Plastic Man.
Tom Green Plastic Man movie? I'd watch it. Be a weird choice, but you know what? Tom Green is Plastic Man. Warner Brothers, make it happen. Make it happen. Oh wait, actually, Tom Green is the elongated man.
I don't know who that is.
Well, you see, Plastic Man has a fat man as his sidekick, right? Woozy Winks. Unironically his name. Stupidest name in the history of fiction. And Elongated Man has a wife, Sue Dimney, who killed the Adams wife. And that's in Brad Meltzer's The Identity Crisis, which is a pretty good comic.
I'm going to bed.